Welcome to PeachTEA, Georgia IT podcast, where we talk about transportation engineering advancement. Our guest today is Iris. She has an extensive background in the transportation industry, and she has worked on many planning, grants, tolling, and many other projects. So I'm very excited to have her today. She is also the current president of the WTS Women's Transportation Seminar. So welcome, Iris.
Thank you, Kumari. It's a pleasure for me to be here today and be talking to you and the ITAE crew about my experience and be the first guest of your podcast.
Thank you so much. So I want to start by going from the background, from where you started your career from, and then gradually go towards your professional career, your role in WTS. And I'm hoping some of the conversation that we are going to have today will help some of the young engineers, women in transportation, who are trying to find their path. When you started your career, what inspired you to pursue this field? What inspired you to get into civil engineering? And are there any pivotal moments that led you to this?
Yeah, so, I always say that, when I was growing up, thought of you're growing up, you're thinking of different careers. Do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be a nurse, right? Do I want to be a doctor, a lawyer? And, growing up, computers were starting to become the thing, right? People were starting computer programming. And so I remember I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I was talking to this one teacher in school. And I told her that I was interested in doing computer programming, which obviously is not what I'm doing today. And she told me, "You're very good at math. You should consider computer engineering." And it was that one moment where that word engineering entered my vocabulary. I had never thought of engineering as a career until that point. And so that kind of draw my interest into engineering. And then I started thinking more about outside computers, what other fields of engineering were out there. I kind of settled and got interested in civil engineering, particularly, to building projects, buildings, houses, homes, that kind of that vertical infrastructure. But then once I started civil engineering and started taking the transportation courses, that's where my interest for transportation then became more evident, where I started enjoying all the work that went into studying traffic, how to move people, all the transit work. At the time when I was in college, we were starting to work in Puerto Rico with the Tren Urbano, which is a heavy rail system that was built in that era. So definitely that kind of draw my interest into transportation.
Okay, that's amazing. So as you're exploring that, I know that you're from Puerto Rico, and then you came for MIT, you graduated from MIT. So what led you choose MIT? And then how did MIT help you, to get to where you are right now? Yeah,
so, when I was in undergrad, I was considering, I definitely wanted to continue grad school. And my choices was I wanted to come to the U.S. to pursue my graduate degree. And so I applied to a lot of different schools. My best friend at the time, who's now a professor at the University of Puerto Rico, he encouraged me to apply to MIT. And I never thought that was a possibility, to be honest. But at that time, again, it's all the pivotal moments and where you are in life and what things are happening around you. And so I remember the University of Puerto Rico had a joint program with MIT. They were doing research for this Tren Urbano project. And so my friend, suggested that I apply to MIT, and not only that I try to talk to some professors and to tell them my interest in this Tren Urbano joint program. And so I did. I applied to MIT. I applied to a lot of different schools. I applied to 7 other schools. A few of them rejected me, a few of them accepted me. And I talked to this one professor in Puerto Rico who was kind of the liaison in the program with the University of Puerto Rico. And I talked to him, I told him about my interest, and he definitely encouraged me to reach out to MIT and to let them know that I was interested in the program, and the rest is history, right? They accepted me at MIT, and I just went there to work actually for Tren Urbano, which was like my research project when I was in grad school.
So were there any women, like how many women were there in your class when you were at MIT?
There were several women, I would say. I mean, I think, when I was in undergrad, something very interesting in the civil engineering department, we had quite a few women in the class. So it wasn't probably quite 50-50, but we have a good number of women there. And then when I was at MIT, we have several women who were also part of like the research program I was part of. Some of them, I've seen how their careers have advanced, like Laura Viola. She's like, she founded ITP at Foursquare, and she's been growing her business for the past several years, right? So definitely we have some women and some very great, smart, bright women in our program. Not the majority, right? You always find yourself that, you're one of few, but a lot of like great females and strong, smart women in that program.
That's amazing. After MIT, you interned and you co-opted FHWA before you started your full-time. So where I'm headed with this is, as you're interning, like how did that help you get into your next steps of your career? I'm mainly wondering from whoever is currently interning, or is it an entry level, what can they do to make full use of their internship?
So, internships are a great way for you to kind of like, get your toes wet, and can kind of like get a start in the professional world, right? And so there is, I think it still is, a program that is called STEPTIC. It's a summer internship program for minorities as part of the US DOT. And so I was in undergrad when I did my internship with Federal Highway in headquarters in Washington, D.C. And it was a great opportunity with students from all throughout the U.S. and some from Puerto Rico. We had the opportunity to be part of that program. And that opens doors and make connections. And I think that working with some of our interns here at HNTV now, something that we keep emphasizing is the idea of like make connections, talk to people, network. And that is important every time at all levels of your life, because that way you get to know people in different positions that in the future you're going to continue running into. We are a big industry, but not that big, if it makes sense. Because I think that we all somehow relate to each other in different ways, and we run into each other in different ways and in different parts of our career. And someone that we meet today, we may run into 10 years down the road, and might be someone who might be influential or important for things that we are doing and what we're trying to do. So I think networking, getting to know people, of course, you have to do the work. It's not only being nice and friendly and being able to talk to others that's going to take you far. You have to demonstrate also your technical excellence and your capabilities. But again, being able to relate and make connections with people, that's highly important. And I think that's a value that you can get out of an internship.
That's wonderful advice. And then I think after you did your internship, you started working at Cambridge Systematics, and now you're at HNTV. Just wanted to ask a high-level question. How was it working at all these different firms? And is there something that you have, like any insights on the things you learned as you were progressing your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, working with Cambridge Systematics, is a small company, much smaller than HNTV. But it certainly has a great reputation in the industry. And I got an opportunity to learn so many things, and I have so many great friends there that I think that, I was able to build my career. I was there for 17 years, right? I was there for a long time. And I was able to grow and experience many things. And, being part of a smaller firm sometimes exposes you earlier probably to many aspects of the business, because you have to be more resourceful and you have to do a lot more to get things done, whereas at a bigger company, you may got more staff that are supporting different aspects. You probably are the one person who does three things, where at a bigger firm, you have three people doing the three different jobs, right? And so there was that aspect, and I loved every minute that I worked with Cambridge Systematic. I have a lot of big respect for everyone there. But the time came where I needed a little bit of something a little bit different, and an opportunity came knocking down my door, and I came to HNTB. And again, another great experience. I shifted entirely my career from working in planning, policy, mostly grants, a lot of funding, finance work, to now getting more on the technical side, ITS and tolling specifically with the procurement of these major projects in Georgia, right? So it exposed me to something new. Very exciting because I got to learn that something new, something that I wasn't exposed to before. And I'm a quick learner, right? So I was able to grasp that and then make the connections. Again, making the connection with the people who know, who can guide me, who can help me do my job. And so it's been, that experience has been something very different, but very rewarding as well. And on top of that, I think that, here, we get the resources and the support that the company provides for people for professional development and growth, and it's something that I've taken advantage of, and that it's very beneficial and that is available for people here. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. So you spoke a little bit about major projects. So you were recently part of this kind of mega grant, and you helped win a grant for I-55 bridge replacement for around $400 million. Would you like to speak about that? Any challenges, or what went into making that a win?
Yeah, it was a great, rewarding experience in terms of getting Tennessee DOT to receive that almost $400 million award for a grant. I think that that day I felt like, okay, I'm done with my with my career. I think I shifted the pinnacle of it. But no, kidding aside, it was a lot of work. I'm very passionate about the work with grants. I love the idea of being able to help these projects that have some funding gap, right? That there's some resources, but they still need to have some funding gap, and that they're important projects for the community. This is a aging bridge, 75 years old, right? It's not retrofitted for seismic events. It's a very important connection for freight and the economy in that region. And the other connection in the area failed, like it's the I-40 bridge. There was an issue a few years earlier that demonstrated how important these connections are there for mobility and the economy in the region. And so to be able to demonstrate the importance of this project, I think that was very a key component of having this grant to be successful, right? And there's a lot of aspects that go into when you work on a grant. You have all the technical aspects, right? And what are the criteria that the government, in this case US DOT and Federal Highway, were looking for these grants, right? So we were able to show that we needed, for resiliency of the system, to provide that if there's an earthquake in that area and that bridge fails because it's not ready for a seismic event, that is gonna really crumble the economy in the region. And how important is that connection there, right? The mobility of people. The bridge is 75 years old. Geometrically is very obsolete, right? So safety is an imperative item there, right? Providing, upgrading to current standards that roadway so that travelers can travel safely down that road, right? So it was all showing that. It also was getting the political support. And I didn't do the work all by myself, right? There was a great team behind me I was kind of driving the process, working with the client, but they were writing the sections, gathering all the data and information. There was a piece that was a benefit cost analysis when we had, our experts working on that and kind of coming up with how this project is going to be beneficial to that region. What are the measurable benefits that we can show, how important it's going to be, and what the return of investment of this project is going to be, because it's almost $1 billion project, right? And it's a lot of money. And so there's so many competing projects, so you want your project to stand out. And then getting that political support. I mean, that's very important. That plays a big role. And so that was, talking, it's a bi-state project, is with Arkansas and Tennessee. Tennessee was leading, but Arkansas is going to be providing some of the funding too, and because it crosses states. And so it was coordinating with them, getting that DOT on board as well, getting, decision maker, the congressional delegation, getting letters of support from businesses, from Federal Express, from all the businesses in the area. So it's a major undertaking. And we only have about a month to do it. So, it's taking into consideration that it's a lot of work, it's many hours in a very narrow window that we had to complete everything. But, we got it done. And we had, we did the first application that was due in December of 2023. Came 2024, there was an opportunity to submit a supplemental with more information. We only had 2 weeks for that one. So 2 weeks of trying to gather as much information and as much compelling and data-driven information that we could to support the case that this project was important and worth that $400 million grant.
So this was definitely a great team you had that led to winning this grant. I had a general question. So if you were to define a dream team to either deliver a project or win a project, what does the team need to have?
The team need to have passion. The team need to have, you need the technical knowledge and the know-how, and that's very important, right? And I think that, thinking about the teams I've worked with, I've worked with diverse teams all the time, right? Women, men from different countries, from different skin color, like it's races. I mean, we tend to work in a very diverse workplace, right? And so I think that aside, thinking of like what that racial, gender diversity aside, you need people who are reliable, people who are willing to communicate, because I think especially in this kind of like environment where you're working toward tight deadlines, communication is important, right? Like, if I'm delayed on something, I'm affecting the piece that somebody else is gonna be doing. So communication is very important. Being able to say, okay, I can't find these, help me, right? Like being able to be that one person that if I know I'm not gonna be able to deliver, at least I speak out and find the resources to support me. And so people who are driven, who are willing to go the extra mile. I mean, in many of these grant projects, again, because the time frames are so short, it requires late nights and weekends, right? And so it's something, it's not gonna happen all the time. I mean, I'm very into work-life balance and having my own time and enjoying my free time. Because we all need that. We all need a break. I love vacation, everybody does, right? And should. But, when you're committed to this, it's like understanding that for that short period of time, your life is going to revolve around that. But I think that because sometimes these projects are so interesting and you see what the benefit of these projects moving forward is, that you feel the passion and you really enjoy. And yeah, you're gonna go for a week just working, 12 hours, 13 hours of waking up at 4 in the morning and writing emails on trying to get some information, which I did when I was working in this grant, right? But at the end of the day, that time just goes by and you're done and you move on to the next thing. But, you were committed to that and you give your all to that. And I think that teams that are able to provide their all and are committed and that are willing to go that extra mile, that's what I want to work with.
Yeah. So passion, drive to do it, commitment to work, communication.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
basically that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's great. We talked a little bit about your background. So now you're the current president of WTS. So you worked on different chapters. You were involved in the Boston chapter, Washington, D.C. chapter, and your contribution heavily went into the Atlanta chapter. So were you part of WTS through MIT while you're at school, or did you start this after you started your career?
I didn't know of WTS until I was already well into my career, and I was already like about 5 years in, because I joined 2005. So I was about 5 years into my career, and I had this coworker who suggested that I should join WTS and invited me to one event. And I joined, and the rest is history, right? I mean, I found this group. When you start in your career, and that's one thing, I mean, especially, since, we're targeting some of, young members and young professionals. One thing that I think, again, is that networking, the meeting people, that value. When you start in your career, usually you work, under some project manager or a task manager, and you're given tasks, right? Things to do, things to complete. You may have or may not have, some interaction with your client or peers within the client organization, right? And so your world mostly revolves around your office, your coworkers, your team. I think the value of professional organization is opening kind of like that world to what is out there and connecting with other like-minded or similar professionals to you who work for other companies, who work for clients, and opening that outside door. Because otherwise you just become in this bubble within your company, and you really, to grow, I feel that you need to step outside that. So, whether it's a professional organization, and it's like I was involved with TRB2 for many years, and that was something that definitely opened my doors and opened, my career to make connections with other people in the industry. So I think those are things that are very valuable, being able to engage with other organizations, whichever they are, right? Like, I love my WTS, I will root for WTS, but we have many great organizations that serve different interests, and I think that, whatever you're passionate about, that you should pursue. But I think that if you're able to join these organizations, if you didn't get to know them from where you were in grad school or on undergrad, in the moment you join, a company, just go for it. Just try to join one of these organizations, because again, I think that making those connections is very important.
Did you have any hurdles, like being a woman in the transportation industry? Did you have any hurdles?
That's always like a very difficult question. And I don't know if it's my personality or the way I am. I don't think I've had that many struggles. I think on the contrary, I've had a lot of people who have supported me, who's taken me under their wing no matter what, and helped me grow in my career and being supportive. One may have struggles here and there, but I think the good things of my career have been bigger and more. And I don't want to dismiss that people don't have struggles. I'm pretty sure, and I've known women in the industry, and I've had colleagues, male colleagues too, who have had struggles throughout their careers, right? But I can't point to something that has marked me, right? Or have been a negative in my life. But I've been lucky, and I think that I try to count more of like the good things and my blessings than looking at the negative. I'm sure there's been something horrible that has happened, and I just don't remember right now.
No, that's great to hear. But I think at least for people like me who are trying to grow in their career, I feel like I have the opportunity, I have people to look up to. We
have a lot of great women leaders here in Georgia. I think that, I've come across to so many wonderful women, working both in the private and the public sector, right? So I think the opportunities are there. I think that many of them have paved the way for the likes us, the women like us, to follow their path, and that's a good thing. And it's great that you can have people to look up to, and my role and the role of women who are in my position is to bring everyone up to where we are.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think everyone can contribute for a better future? So not just focused on any like women, minority or so, but as an industry as a whole, what do you think people should be aware of so that we build like a better tomorrow?
I think, usually transportation modes, and that's how it has worked, and it works mostly, it's very siloed, right? There's the highway people and the transit people, and I think that it's has been designed like that by the way the industry and sometimes the way government works. I mean, we were having today the GDOP breakfast, and one of our panelists was talking about how the public sometimes come to GDOP, she's communications, GDOP comes with questions about MARTA, because the people out there, unless you work in the industry, may not understand that MARTA is its own agency with its own funding. It's just a regional organization versus GDOT, which is the state transportation organization, right? And that they primarily deal with highways, that their funding, it's by statute, or actually I think it's by constitution, is dedicated to roads and highways, and so they cannot use the the gas tax to pay for public transportation, right? So those are all those intricacies, and it varies by state, right? It's not the same, say in Florida, it's not the same in Texas, it's not the same in Tennessee, right? So things vary across the board all throughout the US. And so I think that we need to be conscious about how can we leverage and try to work almost, because like everybody has different mobility needs and accessibility needs, and how can we as transportation professionals, our role is to help move people and goods. How can we address that, and how can we provide alternatives of transportation? And I think that that's kind of like, we always have that in the back of our minds, but I think that's the best thing that we can do for the future.
What do you think Atlanta can do for a better non-car related transportation?
I wish that we had more public transportation options. I mean, I don't have a car. Haven't owned a car in 27 years. Right? And so, I moved to Boston from Puerto Rico. I had a car when I was in Puerto Rico. But then I moved to Boston, and I didn't need a car to go to school. Then I didn't need a car to go to work. And so my life started revolving around a carless lifestyle that I enjoy. I truly enjoy. I hate driving. And I lose days of life every time I get on a car and I have to drive. So, then I moved to DC, where still the options are good. I think that Atlanta is getting better. I think people are getting more transit conscious, and there's a call for more options. But again, I mean, sometimes all these things comes down to planning, funding, priorities, and I think that if all stakeholders and players were able to somehow come to a resolution, and I think that they're trying, I'm not saying they're not, but I think that it's that very collaboration and that better understanding, and how can we allocate resources to provide for all, and then kind of like making those transit improvements that are so much needed for people.
So where do you think this should start from, though? As transportation professionals, what can we do? I pretty much work on highway, freeway projects, intersections analysis, etc. What can transportation professionals do to get the vision you're talking about?
I mean, it comes down a lot to what the people who are working at the agencies that regulate that, right? And it comes to also the legislature, right? And what policies are put in place to advance the types of transportation, projects that we want to see in the future, right? That drives that. Funding drives that, right? So there's a lot of like bigger picture things that need to be addressed. And decision makers, when we go and vote, right? And we vote, elected officials have a lot of say on what happens, right? So, are we voting for elected leaders that are supportive of the kind of transportation that what we want? What is on their platform? I mean, I don't want to get political, but it starts there, right? And then all it goes down, and so we definitely need to kind of like be supportive. I mean, I know organizations like ACEC and the Council for Quality Growth, they're always tracking what's happening, with the assembly here, with the General Assembly. What are the bills that are there? How can we influence as an industry, what decisions are made. And I think that that's part of that picture. And there's everything that happens in DC too at the federal level. And we have transportation professionals who really work trying to influence what's in a transportation bill, what's happening, in Capitol Hill. All those things, all the ways that we can contribute and that we can influence. I mean, that's a starting point.
That's very insightful. Yeah, thank you. Going back to your career and how you progressed, I'm trying to tie the WTS and the career and whatnot. Is there anything you would do different in your career? I have a two-part question here. One, is there any advice you would give your younger self? And two, is there any advice you would give to the younger generation at the moment?
I mean, there's so many things I probably would do differently, to be honest. One thing I always regret, and it's not so much about transportation at all, or, when I was in undergrad, one thing I regret was never doing a student exchange program, right? And probably go to some college in some European country or somewhere else, right? To kind of get that taste of another country and how things are. I mean, it's fascinating for me. I love travel. And so to me, it's fascinating to travel to different countries, experience the way they move there, right? Transportation systems in different countries. That would have been I think it would have enriched my life a lot. So that's one of the things I wish I would have done differently. I didn't do it, but here I am. It's okay. Maybe, I had a taste of public service, and, working as an intern for a public organization. I think that, that's a good thing to see, how things are done on that other side, right? Because they are the decision makers. We are kind of like the doers on the public sector on addressing and helping them achieve what their goals are. But they set that agenda, and they set that. And I think that probably maybe at some point having been able to have a little bit more experience on that side, on setting the agenda, setting what the policies are. I mean, that would have been probably something interesting to do in my career, though I'm not saying that it won't happen, because I'm still young. I still have a few years to go. And I would have started earlier at WTS, to be honest. I was a little bit into my career. I think I caught it at a good time too, and I've been very committed and devoted to the organization for the past 20 years. So I think that, I kind of make up for not being there from the get-go. But it's there's always something else you can do, right? And I mean, I'm not gonna be thinking about what my regrets are of things that I didn't do. But I think that if the opportunity touches your door, just be open to consider the possibilities. I'm here in Atlanta by chance. I'm here in Atlanta because somebody called me up and said, hey, there's this big project in Georgia. We got this big contract. There's going to be all this, $11 billion being invested by GDOT on these, major projects, and we need some project managers. Would you be interested, right? And at that time, I'm like, maybe, sounds interesting, right? I'm ready for a change, and that's how I ended up here. So yeah, be open and willing to see and taste those opportunities. But that requires also being available out there, right? Again, the networking, the talking to people, the connections, that's really important. If you're just in your cubicle, just your head down and not being engaged, you need to be noticed and people need to know you, and that's through good work, but also to being out there and making the connections.
Yeah, that's great information. Yeah. And then going to your professional organizational commitment, I know that WTS has their own programs. It's a lot about the leadership. What would you like to do in collaboration with ITE? I just want to tie it a little bit to the ITE. Would you like to see more collaboration between these two organizations? If so, what do you have in mind?
I would definitely love to see more collaboration between the two organizations, and I think that I saw Christy last year at the WTS holiday party, and I mentioned this to her. And the first thing you asked me to do this, and I was like more than happy to do. So I think that we have both organizations. We have members that overlap between the two, and I think that we can serve those members better by having joint programs. And again, IT have their own programs, we have our own programs. If there's a way to collaborate, I'm more than open to do that. I probably spent the past several months trying to get into the role. My term as president started in January of this year. So I spent this past 6 months kind of like getting into the role of like WTS. I think that it would be amazing if we can do something as an organization. I know that there's been some conversations around some kickball tournament with some organizations, and I'm sure that I don't play kickball, right? But I'm sure that I have some members who would love to be part of that. And, I'm definitely very open for our organization to get engaged on that. But if there are other seminars, even professional development, WTS, we cover a lot of areas, right? Like, we have people in communications, in marketing, in planning, engineers, right? Like we have like a broad variety of like career interests versus maybe ITs that is more focused on a specific group within engineering, right, and transportation. And so that's a subset. I have, in my organization, I probably have a subset of people who are part of IT, right? So, finding things that, we're going to have soon, something that is going to be on personal branding. So topics like that might be good opportunities for us to collaborate and have joint events where we can, when we can do something together. I'm definitely open to that. And, one thing that I said I was going to do, which I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will, I wanted to look through like the Engineering Georgia magazine, where like all the organizations have like the professional organizations have their own page. Well, I wanted to see who the presidents are. Can I make connections with those people and see how we can collaborate? Because I think that together we are stronger, together we can do more, we can provide more, and that way we provide more value to both our memberships, the more we can do things together.
Yeah, I'll be very much looking forward to that, so thank you. I guess to close it out, any final thoughts, or how do you want your legacy in this transportation industry?
Yeah, that legacy question is very interesting, and one thing I've been I get emotional about it, but working with WTS, I think we are here to elevate women and to let women who are coming up the ranks, to get them, to different places and help them advance their careers. We have program with high school girls. We have our scholarship program with universities. And I think I want that to be part of my legacy, helping the younger generations. Because like once you are in the workplace, you are in the workplace. but it's helping those younger generations that are coming up to let them know that there's a place for you, that there are opportunities for you, that, you know, I am where I am because somebody saw potential in me. And they gave me an opportunity and a chance. And I want to be that to not one person, but to many. And I think that, you know, one of the things I want to do for WTS is grow our scholarship program. You know, we give $17,000 every year. I want us to give more. I want us to be able to help more young women who are pursuing careers in transportation to get there. I want our transportation youth program with high school girls to grow and show them that there are careers in transportation and opportunities there, that the sky is the limit, that you can do many things in this industry, and that we are here for them, that my door is open to anyone who comes, male, women, you know, non-gender, binary, whoever. They can come to me. I'm happy to help anyone because I am where I am because I have people who believed in me. So I hope that can be my legacy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you do. Like I said, having women leadership, that really helps me. Like, I look up to people like you. So thank you for doing everything. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking at the Georgia ITE podcast. Hoping we can connect more and hoping we can do more events with WTS like you spoke about.
Definitely. It's on record now, so
yes.
we better do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.